She said it like a joke. It's just coffee. But the way she looked at me when she said it, it wasn't just anything. I'd moved into the apartment 2 weeks ago, still half living out of boxes, when she knocked on my door that morning. The hallway light caught in her hair, strands of brown and silver threaded together, like she'd lived enough years to know things people my age only guessed at. She carried 2 cups, steam rising between us. "I made extra," she said. Her smile was steady, but her fingers tightened around the cardboard tray. That's how it started. We sat at her small kitchen table, facing the window where sunlight spilled over the counter. Her place smelled faintly of roasted beans and lavender cleaning spray. I tried not to stare, at her wrists, at the way her blouse slipped slightly when she leaned forward. But she noticed.
Of course she did.
"You don't talk much," she said, stirring her coffee though she hadn't added sugar. "I'm still waking up," I said, but my voice came out quieter than I meant. She laughed softly, not unkindly. "You remind me of someone I used to know." He'd look at me like he was afraid I'd disappear if he blinked. Her words hung there. I wanted to ask who that person was, but something about the way her eyes drifted toward the window told me not to. Silence. Not awkward. Just thick, like the air before rain. The steam between us curled upward and faded. I noticed tiny details. Her ring finger bare, the faint scar near her wrist, the chipped blue nail polish. She wasn't pretending to be perfect. That made her harder to look away from. When she asked what I did for work, I stumbled through an answer, freelancing, odd jobs, photography, but I think she was only half listening. Her gaze stayed on my face, studying it like she was trying to read something behind my words. "You're too young to drink your coffee black," she finally said, smiling just a little. "I'm trying to grow into the taste," I said. Her smile faded, just for a second. "Careful. Some things you grow into too soon." That line sat between us like a small spark. Neither of us moved, though the space felt different now. Tighter, warmer. She reached for her mug, her fingers brushing mine. It could have been an accident.
Could have been.
But neither of us pulled away fast enough to prove it. Her hand was warm. My pulse jumped. She noticed. "You're shaking," she murmured. "Maybe it's the coffee." Her lips curved. "Maybe." Outside, a dog barked once, sharp and distant. Inside, everything else went still. No clock ticking, no fridge hum, just her breathing and mine. She looked at me, really looked like she was testing a thought she shouldn't be thinking. "Next time," she said softly, "I'll let you make it. Coffee." Her eyes lifted to mine, holding there a beat too long. Something like that. Then a knock at her door. Hard, unexpected. She blinked, broke the stare, and set her mug down a little too quickly. Coffee sloshed over the rim, trailing toward her fingers. "Stay," she whispered, more to herself than to me. Then she stood, smoothing her blouse with a hand that trembled just slightly, and went to answer it. I watched her back as she crossed the room, slow, graceful, unaware of the way I couldn't breathe. The door opened. A man's voice.
Low.
Familiar to her. She froze for half a second before turning her head toward me, eyes saying everything words couldn't. And that's when I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't just coffee. The next time she called, she didn't knock. I heard the faint rattle of her keys through the thin wall, then her voice. "You home?" Casual, but too soft to be casual at all. I opened the door before I had time to think. She stood there holding a small plant in a cracked terracotta pot.
"For your window," she said.
"You could use a little life in there." Her smile was brief. Her eyes weren't. I stepped aside to let her in, suddenly aware of the mess. Unfolded laundry. Open laptop, a half-finished sandwich.
She didn't comment.
Just placed the plant on the sill, fingers tracing the rim like she needed something to do with her hands. "It's quiet here," she said. "Too quiet." I shrugged. "You get used to it." She turned then, slow, studying me like she was looking for proof. "You shouldn't get used to quiet this young." There was something heavy behind her words, not pity exactly, more like memory. I found myself asking before I could stop. "You live alone?" Her hand stilled on the plant. "Now I do."
A pause.
Long enough to make me wish I hadn't asked. Divorced? She nodded once. A long time ago. Then added, with a faint, self-mocking laugh, long enough for the dust to settle. Not long enough to forget the sound it made.
I didn't know what to say.
But she didn't seem to need an answer. Instead, she moved closer, her shoulder brushing mine as she reached for my coffee mug on the counter. Still taking it black? Trying to. She smiled. That same knowing look from before. Still growing into it then. Her breath touched my neck as she spoke. It wasn't deliberate. Or maybe it was. My heart thudded anyway. I shouldn't be here, she said suddenly, setting the mug down but not stepping back. I didn't ask you to leave, I said quietly. That made her look up. Her eyes flicked between mine, searching, or maybe warning. You don't know what you're asking. I didn't ask anything. Her lips curved, a flicker of amusement breaking through the tension. Exactly. We stood too close, the air thick again, her perfume faint, like citrus and rain on warm skin. She crossed her arms, pretending to be unaffected, but her fingers tapped against her sleeve. Nervous rhythm. I wanted to touch her. Not out of boldness, but to see if she'd pull away. She didn't. When my hand brushed her arm, she froze. Just a small touch, the kind you could pretend never happened. But neither of us did. You really shouldn't, she whispered, not moving. Maybe you shouldn't have brought the plant, I said. She let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh, shaky, real. God, you're too young for this. Too young for what? She looked at me then, really looked, regret and warmth fighting for space in her eyes. For knowing better, she said. Then she stepped back, breaking the spell. Water it once a week, she added, nodding toward the plant like it mattered. Her hand brushed mine again as she passed, deliberate this time. Warm, lingering, then gone. At the door, she hesitated, her voice softer now. It's just a plant, okay? I nodded. But as she left, the scent of her perfume stayed behind, and I couldn't tell if it felt more like a promise or a warning. The next time it happened, it wasn't planned. She'd knocked to borrow sugar, which I didn't have. I said she could check herself, joking, but she actually stepped inside. The air shifted the second she did. Her hair was damp, rain still dripping from her coat. She shook it off, laughing softly, and that sound, it hit somewhere low in my chest. I should have brought my own, she said, brushing water from her sleeve. You can have coffee without sugar, I said. I could, she said, meeting my eyes. But why would I? The pause that followed wasn't awkward. It was worse, too aware. The kind that fills a room until you forget to breathe. She moved toward the counter, standing close enough that I could feel the warmth of her through the damp fabric. The smell of rain clung to her, mixing with the faint citrus I'd come to recognize. You look tired, she said quietly. Working too much. I shrugged. Can't seem to sleep. Why not? You talk too loud in my head. She froze, eyes flicking to mine. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then her phone buzzed, a sharp sound in the still room. She reached for it, glanced at the screen, then turned it face down without answering. Who was it? I asked. No one, she said too quickly. Then, softer. My neighbor. She thinks I'm avoiding her. She likes to check if I'm okay. Are you? Her hand tightened around the edge of the counter. I don't know anymore. The space between us vanished without either of us moving much. I don't remember stepping closer, just realizing I could see the small pulse at her neck. You shouldn't look at me like that, she whispered. Like what? Like you mean it. Her hand brushed mine, once, twice, then stayed. The silence pressed heavier. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the rain softening outside. She leaned forward slightly, eyes half on my mouth, half on the floor. I could have closed the distance.
It would have taken nothing.
But she turned her head just enough to break it. I told myself I wouldn't do this again, she said. Do what? Forget the rules. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't look. The sound seemed to echo, reality trying to claw its way back in. I tried to step back, but she caught my wrist, fingers trembling. Don't. Someone might. Let them, she said, then blinked, realizing what she'd said. I didn't mean that. But her hand didn't move. I reached up, slow, brushing a strand of wet hair from her cheek. She closed her eyes at the touch, not a sigh, but something close. Then a knock on my door. We both froze. Open up, man. You left your mail in my box again. It was my friend from down the hall. She stepped back fast, pulse visible at her throat, breathing shallow. I opened the door a crack, took the envelope, muttered thanks. When I turned back, she was by the window, staring out into the rain. Neither of us spoke. When I came to stand beside her, she didn't look away. Just said, barely above a whisper, "This can't happen." But her hand brushed against mine again, light, uncertain, and this time, she didn't pull away. It started with a knock again, softer this time, like she wasn't sure she wanted me to answer. When I opened the door, she didn't speak. Just looked at me, eyes red at the edges, rain in her hair again, though it wasn't raining outside. I shouldn't be here, she said. Then why are you? Her lips parted, but the words never came. She stepped past me, into the room, shutting the door behind her like she was afraid someone might see. I had a fight, she said finally, with my sister. About everything. She waved a hand, then pressed it to her forehead. She thinks I'm lonely. The word hung there, raw. You're not, I said. She gave a short, tired laugh. You don't know that. I did, though. I'd seen it. The way she paused before locking her door at night, how her lights stayed on long after midnight. The way she lingered in conversation, just to make silence wait. She leaned against the counter, rubbing her temple. I stepped closer without thinking, and she didn't move away. Hey, I said softly. You're shaking. It's fine, she said, but her voice cracked. I reached out, fingers brushing her arm. She let out a breath, part relief, part surrender. Don't, she said, but it came out weak. You came here, I said. That doesn't mean I know what I'm doing. Neither do I. That made her laugh again, smaller this time. You're honest to a fault. I learned it from you. Something shifted in her face. The tightness around her mouth eased. She turned toward me, close enough that I could smell her skin. Faint perfume, coffee, and something like warmth after rain. I keep trying to stay away, she whispered. You make it hard. Her eyes found mine, and there it was again, that pull neither of us could name without ruining it. I reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My hand lingered at her jaw, thumb tracing just beneath her lip. Her breath caught. You shouldn't look at me like that, she said again, softer now. I can't help it. Then you'll regret it. Maybe. We stood there, suspended, too close, too still. Her fingers curled around the edge of my shirt, barely holding, like she was testing the line between control and wanting to lose it. Tell me to stop, I said. She looked up, eyes glinting with something fierce and scared all at once. I can't. The words hit harder than a kiss would have. I leaned in, slow, close enough to feel her breath tremble against my cheek. You don't have to, I whispered. Her lips parted. The moment tightened. The room felt too small for what hovered between us. Then her phone rang, loud, sharp, splitting the air. We both flinched. She stared at it vibrating on the counter, face draining of color. The name on the screen flashed once. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked back at me, torn between fear and something that looked too much like need. Don't, she said again, but this time it sounded like a plea. I took one step closer. Then say it's just coffee. She didn't. The phone stopped ringing. The silence after felt dangerous. And that's where everything stopped, breath, thought, the space between us, right before the point of no return. I didn't see her for 3 days. Her blinds stayed closed. The plant she'd given me started to wilt. Every time I passed her door, I slowed, listening for sound, for movement, anything. Nothing. Then, on the 4th night, she knocked again.
No coffee. No smile.
Just stood there, hair pulled back tight, eyes rimmed in shadow. We need to talk, she said. I stepped aside, but she didn't move. She stayed in the doorway, like crossing the line between our apartments might break something that couldn't be fixed. Did you tell anyone? She asked. What? About us. There isn't an US, remember? She flinched, but only for a second. Don't joke. Someone knows. My pulse kicked.
Who?
My sister. Her voice shook. She stopped by today. She said she heard something. Said she saw me leaving your place that night. I tried to remember. Had the hallway light been on? The door left cracked? She thinks. She stopped, swallowed hard. She thinks I'm losing control again. Again? Her silence told me more than any answer could. What happened before? I asked quietly. She looked away, arms crossing over her chest. There was someone. Years ago. Younger. It ended badly. For him. For me. I waited, but she didn't explain. She didn't have to. The weight in her voice said enough. You think this is the same? I asked. She met my eyes then. Tell me it isn't. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But she was standing so close I couldn't think straight. Her breath hit my collarbone, her hand twisting in the fabric of her sleeve like she was holding herself together. It's not, I said finally. It's different. Why? She asked. Because you're young enough to believe it? Her words stung, but the look in her eyes was worse. Fear threaded with want. She stepped past me, into the room, running her hand along the back of the couch like she needed something solid. I thought I could stop this, she said, voice low. But you make me. She stopped, shaking her head. You don't even realize what you're doing. I moved closer, just enough that she could feel the heat between us. Then tell me what I'm doing. Her throat worked. You're reminding me what it's like to want something I can't have. Silence. The kind that feels like a held breath. Then she turned, quick, her shoulder brushed mine, her voice barely there. My sister said she's coming by tomorrow. Don't be here. Why? Because I can't explain you. She was trembling, but when I touched her arm, she didn't pull away. Then don't, I said. Her eyes flicked to mine, wild, uncertain. You think it's that simple? No, I said. I think it's already too late. Her hand came up, pressed against my chest, stopping me, but not really. It lingered there, her pulse fluttering under her wrist. I should go, she whispered. I nodded, but neither of us moved. Finally, she stepped back, breath unsteady. Tomorrow, she said. Don't be here. Then she turned and left, quick, almost running, leaving the door open just long enough for the hallway light to spill in. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if that light meant safety or the beginning of the end. She didn't come by the next morning, or the next. But that night, long after I'd given up listening for her, I heard the quiet click of my door.
No knock this time.
She stepped inside like she'd been fighting herself all day. Her hair was loose, her coat half-buttoned, her breathing uneven, like she'd walked too far in a hurry and didn't care how she looked when she got here. I told you not to be here, she said. You told me a lot of things. That made her stop. For a second, the only sound was the faint hum of the fridge and the slow rhythm of her breathing. Then she said, softer, my sister came. And she said I looked happy. Her laugh cracked halfway through. That's how she knew something was wrong. I moved toward her, but she lifted a hand, not to stop me, just to steady herself. I can't keep pretending this is harmless. It was never harmless. Her eyes lifted to mine, sharp and tired all at once. You make it sound like that's a good thing. It's the only honest thing, I said. She let out a breath, long and shaky. Then she reached up, fingertips brushing her temple, her throat, the edge of her collarbone, small, restless movements, like her body was arguing with her own restraint. Do you ever think about how this looks? She asked. You and me? All the time. And I still open the door every time you knock. That did it. She looked up sharply, something breaking in her face. Fear, maybe, or the lack of it. She took one step forward, then another, until there were just inches left between us. You shouldn't say things like that, she whispered. Why not? Because I'll believe you. Her voice trembled on the last word. I reached up, brushing a strand of hair away from her cheek. She didn't move. My thumb lingered near her jaw, tracing the edge of her skin like it was fragile glass. "You already do," I said. Her eyes closed. A breath. The kind that isn't really breathing, more like falling. When she opened them again, her face was close enough that I could feel the warmth of it, her breath catching on the edge of mine. "I can't promise you anything," she said. "Not a future. Not peace." "I didn't ask for peace," I whispered. She smiled then, small, broken, real. "God, you're too young to know what you're asking for." "Maybe," I said. "But I know who I'm asking." The silence that followed was thick enough to hold everything we hadn't said. Her hand found mine, fingers trembling as they threaded together. Not a surrender. Not quite defiance either. Just truth. She leaned in, close enough that her forehead brushed mine. Her voice came out barely audible. "This will change everything." "I know." For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she exhaled, slow, final, a sound that felt like release. When our lips almost met, she stopped, eyes open, steady on mine. And in that stillness, we both knew, whatever happened next, we'd already crossed the line. It wasn't about coffee anymore. It never was. Morning light came in slow, soft, gold, honest. She sat by the window, wrapped in my blanket, hair loose around her shoulders. The world outside was quiet, washed clean by the night's rain. Inside, the air still carried the trace of everything we hadn't meant to let happen: coffee, warmth, and something too human to name. Neither of us spoke for a while. We didn't need to. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was just real. "You didn't listen," she said finally, voice low but calm. "I never was good at that." She smiled a little, eyes still on the window. "I should be angry with you. You're not." "No," she said. "I'm not." The blanket slipped slightly from her shoulder. I reached over, pulling it back up, slow, careful. My fingers brushed her skin, and she didn't move away. "I thought it would feel wrong," she said quietly. "You and me." "But it doesn't. It just feels alive." "Maybe that's what it's supposed to feel like," I said. She turned toward me then, eyes soft, unreadable, but no longer afraid. The light caught the faint lines at the corners of her mouth, the ones she always tried to hide when she smiled. For the first time, she didn't hide them. "You'll regret this someday," she said. "Probably." Her laugh was small, real. "At least you're honest. I learned it from you." That made her reach for me, hesitant at first, then certain. Her hand found mine, fingers interlacing like they belonged there. I could feel her pulse against my thumb, steady and warm. "I spent years trying to do what looked right," she said. "Now I just want to do what feels true." I didn't have an answer, just shifted closer until our knees touched. Her hand rested against my chest, feeling the slow rhythm beneath. "Still scared?" I asked. "Always," she said. "But not enough to leave." The words sat between us, soft but final. We stayed like that for a long time, the city waking up beyond the glass, her head finding my shoulder, my hand tracing small circles on her back. "No promises, no intending." Just two people who stopped running from the thing that had already found them. After a while, she whispered, "You should water that plant." I smiled. "You think it'll make it?" She tilted her head, eyes half closed. "Maybe. If you don't forget about it." "I won't." The room went quiet again, filled only by the sound of her breathing and the soft hum of morning traffic. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was ours. When she finally looked up, I kissed her forehead. Nothing rushed, nothing claimed. Just stillness, like the truth had finally settled. She exhaled, a faint smile against my chest. "It was never just coffee, was it?" I shook my head. "No, it never was." Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?